Hi, Corrie here. Welcome. Just coming in to do a quick little video, and this little video is truly one that is sitting with my heart today. And and the card aligns to this as well. So, the what is aligning to my heart was that sense of privilege, boundaries, restrictions, judgment, and how we can be so judgmental because we have the privilege of a circle, right? And so I'm going to refer this to a story. Back in my day of owning my salon and being a hairstylist and being behind the chair, there came with a lot of judgment based on, insecurities of who I was and that I was of service to other people, that I didn't get the right to have an opinion, a say, or to be able to respond back to comments that may have been made about me, that I would have to accept what was being said because of who I was. And so when I created my oracle cards, what really truly started to come to me, and no, they're not available yet, was the essence of truth for me and me having to see my own truth. And so the fragment of you is hollow. And hollow really represents that being the child of God, right? Like that we all came from the one source, or the child of creator, name it whatever you want. That's where some of our judgments comes in, right? And so hollow and the fragments of you was that, I was out there giving my all and using one of my greatest gifts of creativity, opening up my heart, making myself vulnerable. And some of the greatest judgments came in judging that I wasn't enough. I was a less than citizen. I was less than some of the people that would sit in my chair. And that some people that would sit there literally would believe in their own minds, because it then gave them their defense, their protection that they could hide behind, because they had a status within their circle, within their people, within the world that they put around them, that they became a part of, whether or not they made it, they created it, or they were just placed in it. It didn't matter. But people did that. What made me still love them or care for them or still be kind was the fact that I could see beyond, and I could see their spirit. I could see the inner child. I could see the hurt child. And to be able to place judgment upon me was them then being able to mask and hide their own hurts, their own past experiences, their own behavior, their own actions, who and what they were in the past. And so by making me be a less than them type of story, a narrative, and projecting it as attitude, would leave me, with my own hurts. So, but also still being the one where they would be able to dump their secrets on, their experiences that were happening in their lives. But when they left, what really truly, and how I start to recognize this, was when I was outside from behind the chair, and if I seen somebody in public, they would pretty much say, "Oh, do I know you from somewhere?" But in the meantime, they just told me their greatest secrets. So, that judgment is everywhere. And that is people in our sense of being able to see ourselves as, privileged, or not to see ourselves as privileged. We may be privileged in opportunities to be able to be so narrow-minded, to be so able to shut people out and say, "You're not welcome. You're not in my life." Like, I'm shunning somebody like you. I'm canceling you. But when you're quick to cancel somebody, when you're quick to want the world to hate on somebody, you don't realize that you may be impacting, affecting the life that is providing for the people in their world. So when judgment would come upon me, when people would criticize me and criticize, your work because you didn't do what because their expectations were too high, or because you finally had enough of shitty attitude and being talked to like you were less than, and you stood up for yourself, then, when I would stand up for myself, then I was the bad person. But we were well trained early back in our careers that we were not, the customer was always right. And that wasn't true. And so you were taught to shut up, to not defend yourself, to be, and so that left me in that energy of being here, in these broken pieces, these fragments, and remembering that who I was and what I was and the value that I brought. I knew it, but after so many daggers, after so many years, you don't realize the impact that it has. Even though you still have that strong core sense of self, you don't realize that it has impacted you. That it's like the erosion on the rocks as the ocean goes over the rocks. It's the same thing. You will erode, pieces will break away. Coming back into who I am, coming back into this truth when I was no longer keeping myself so busy that I didn't have time to feel, to truly be there. When I stopped and slowed down, I realized that hurt, and that I was hurt, and that my life was hurt. It had its impact upon me, and that those things were hurtful experiences in my life. And for a period of time after having to leave that career because of health, I couldn't see the good anymore, because all of the hurt that I had suppressed, numbed, forgotten, all that me having to defend myself from that defensiveness of opinions and collective energy that would gather up and trying to in judgment and trying to shun you or shun my work or shun whatever, is all I could remember. And I couldn't remember the good. And there was a lot of hurt. I gave my all to something that I walked out the door and I walked away, and it was that dead silence. I got in my truck and I left town, and it was as if I never existed in that community. It was as if I never existed anywhere in that world. And it was a lot of hurt. But it didn't mean those people were bad people. It meant that we all just are so programmed, conditioned. We exist so unconscious to our behaviors, and in such protection, survival mode, trying to defend, trying to hide, trying to mask, trying to wear so many masks, that we don't realize the impact of our own behaviors. And so as I found my way through healing, it wasn't in more judgment. It was actually in ownership and responsibility. It was in learning to really connect to what was mine to carry and what was not mine. And not that I was ever going to write a tell-all book, or because I don't remember, because something that I learned very early in this life that I didn't realize, and it was actually a dear friend and client who has specialties in this area, said to me, she said, "It's so intriguing how you can't retain information, how you don't remember anything that you do, that you write, that you create. Like, you literally got to go back. I can remember reading your words, but you don't remember." She said, and she said to me, that was your defense mechanism. That was how you protected yourself, was that you would make sure that you couldn't remember, you couldn't retain that information, because you were told to keep such secrets from childhood, from wherever. You have been that carrier for so long, and so that you wouldn't have to tell on anybody, so you wouldn't have to get anyone in trouble, because you feared you protected everyone, even those who didn't protect you. You cared for those who never really cared for you. You thought people were your friends, but they weren't. And so I literally could not remember all of these things. And then all of a sudden, all I remembered was the hurt. And what I had to start to do was I had to start to compartmentize where people sat in my life. And they were of great value to me, and I seen everyone as friends. And we do this often in families when we make everybody an auntie or an uncle who's not family. We say, you know, this is your auntie and you have like 1,000 aunties, or you make all of these extra people like your nanas, your grandmas, your grandfathers in your family. And then we place that same expectation, that role. Same thing with a step parent, right? It's like you place that expectation upon people. So in my industry that I previously worked in, I had to remember that there was a difference between clientele and friends. And then there was friends on different levels. And that I didn't have to give my all of my personal energy, my power, to people who were not in that truth with me, in that circle. And so I started to see that, you know, I had made the association that because I wanted to be enough, because I had so many stories of not being enough, that I wanted people to like me, I wanted to belong, I wanted to fit in, and I didn't fit in. I'm not from the province I live in. It's not where I came from. I sounded different. I acted different. I don't look like in my own culture. I don't look like everybody in my culture. I am blended. And so I've never really belonged. So when I started to put people into compartments and I started to see things the way they were, I also could see the responsibility that I had in becoming defensive, argumentative, all the things that were not of my true self. And so finding my way back and finding my way into that truth really came through writing More Than Existing. And then into the second book of My Truth of Existing Beyond the Reflection. And those stories and those narratives, and yes, I'm well dressed today, really truly was that ownership and responsibility, and then to what was not mine to carry. And learning how to say F it, and learning how to say no, they were not right. No, that's not, no, you do not have a right. And when you pass judgment on somebody, and when you're like, oh, we want to cancel that person, no one should go to that, you should never go to that person, you got to remember that your egotistical little conversation that you're having out of fear, out of defensiveness, out of one experience, may be impacting how that person is going to feed their family. And what people didn't remember, often when they would do that and tell everyone, their friends, don't ever go to her, don't you should never see her, is that also that was my survival. That was how food went on the table for my daughter. That's how I fed my daughter. That's how I put a roof over her head. So you didn't just judge me. They judged her. They literally were not thinking beyond the emotional experience in that moment, that impact, that moment was having such an impact up on my life. So if 5 people stopped coming to you because you couldn't meet somebody's expectation, so if they, instead of asking further questions, instead of going directly to the source, instead of just saying, you know what, I will make up my own mind about this person. I will speak personally with them. We can pass judgment so quick and so easily. We, even when we read something, what if somebody was having a bad day? What if somebody was having a moment? And I would always think of those things when this would happen to me. It's like, you know what? I can't help what people think of me. I just can't meet those expectations. But when I wrote my second book, and when these cards are on, as they've been unfolding in my transformation, is that I realized that, check with your privileges. Check your privileges. Check yourself. Check with yourself on what it would feel like to have that happen to you before you do it onto another. And so I recognize a whole lot of my own healing and what kind of person I want to be and who I want to be. So the journey of More Than Existing wasn't about divulging my whole life or about hating on the world. It was about learning how to love a world that was going to have differences, that is going to be filled with people existing in their shadow selves, with inner child hurt, with trauma, with pain, with their own experiences, and that we don't know what somebody else is going through. But if we can be a little bit kinder, imagine the change that we can make. So my journey through Hollow was to see myself as having that little piece of divine within myself, and to seek that out. That if I want to be the best human that I could be for me, that I let myself be vulnerable, be real, share my experiences and how life has impacted me. And now that I could start to feel again. And one of the messages that I gave myself in my writings this morning, not me, the divine, was you you are safe. You are safe to be able to think for yourself. You are safe to be able to remember your experiences. You are safe to know that what happened to you was real. You are safe to allow yourself to walk into a life of thriving. You're safe to stand back up. You're safe to have a voice. Because what happened to me in all of this, and as I'm creating all of this and working, was that I lost confidence. And confidence is something that is definitely in our mindset, but it's something that is a skill. But it was the confidence. I had confidence in the old version of me. I had confidence in the version of me that was in her protection, that was larger than life, that was big, that could defend herself, that had that defense mechanisms, that was running on all of those mechanisms of protection, of defense, of my, I don't need you. I got freaking, I got 6,000 other clients, like blah, blah, blah. Like it doesn't matter. If it didn't matter, it wouldn't have impacted me how it did. It did matter. And so that version of me had all the confidence in the world. This soft side of me, this gentle side of me, this side of me that realizes that really has been impacted by, who's left with the inside wounds of hurt, who also sees through, who also can see through everything. I see truth. As a seer, we see truth, right? We see truth as it is. So I seeing people and seeing their beautiful light, but also seeing how beautiful light can be so contaminated. And so I didn't want to be the unhealed healer. And that was a part of the journey, and to become the best human that I could be. Because if I knew what it felt like, then I definitely don't want somebody else to feel it. And I don't want to exist in that defense mechanism self. So these experiences that I share, it's like I don't exist them. They don't have any emotional charge. They don't impact my life anymore. But these are things within our lives that when you take away the fuse, when you take away the charge, when you take away what triggers you to respond back that way, when you really truly stop and you check in with your own self and you check in with your own behavior, when you check in with it when you're about to cancel somebody, when you're about to mistreat somebody, when you don't appreciate the people that are valuable and important in your life, or when you take things for granted, or just so many things, that realizing that you're not in your full power. These are little pieces, they're particles, right? They're particles of that self. Find their way back. In the most beautiful transformation that I did was break up with all of me and really truly be honest with myself that I didn't know me. I don't know who I am. I don't know who I am on the other side of this. I know who I became. I know what I created, but I don't know who I am. And I am honoring that part of the journey now as I witness a world be divided by fear, by instilling fear, by hating on each other based on not even personally knowing each other, but making these assumptions, by letting political parties, political choices and decisions dictate how you place how you speak about a person or people. You still don't know them. And those are just pieces of people's stories, right? And we can really truly turn a whole group of people into absolute enemies by one person making a statement, an assumption that aligns to where they are in their life, to their one experience, to whatever, and it follows like fucking wildfire. And it's like, when you come back home to you and you can stop and think of the impacts, what kind of impact do I really want to have on this world? I want one of love and light. And I'm not going to be liked by everybody. And that's okay. And not everyone will be operating from a healed state. It's okay. It's okay. But bringing back the pieces of you I knew I didn't want to bring back that self that was exhausting. I have exhausted that life trying to be in protection. When I acknowledged the hurts, when I could move and heal the hurts, I could then remember the success, all of the beautiful people that entered my life. Even some of those that weren't beautiful in experiences, didn't mean we didn't have beautiful experiences. And so there was more beauty and awe and more excitement and more joy and more love in my life than there was the other things, when I look at the people who truly were there for the right reasons. And everyone teaches us something. It's what we do with those lessons and who we become on the other side of that. That's the choice. And so I'm not on those bandwagons. I don't get out there. I live in that space in the middle, right? I live in the middle, and I make my choices and my decisions from that middle place. And so hollow the fragments of you. Who are you and what is important to you? And maybe it's time to break up with all versions of you and allow yourself to be guided by faith into knowing who and what you are. And I hope this message resonates with you. And when you are at a grocery store or when you're anywhere, when you're about to be a keyboard warrior, you stop and you think, is this worth investing into today? And what is the cost of this investment? What is the cost of setting out on an intention to ruin somebody or to judge somebody so harshly that you're willing to let the rest of their lives be compromised? But what's on the other side of their life? What else are they doing? What else are they trying to get through? What most people don't know is that a lot of those same people that you're about to cancel have their own life struggles. A lot of those people that are fighting for their political view, they have their own hurts. Trust me, I know. I have lost everything this year, in the past few years. But I've lost everything I could afford to lose so that I could start from here. And I hope my message touches your heart in a way that it helps you stop, pause, and reflect today. I send you much love. I send the world much love. And the world is still filled with beautiful people, even if they have a different opinion. Much love. Bye-bye.